hosted by Mike, the Big Cheese.
Welcome back to the Heavy Metal Mayhem Radio Show. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving a few days ago. I know I did. I'm getting ready for the Christmas holiday. It's the last show of November. It is the 27th, and we got a great one for everybody tonight. Robert Acquaviva of Luftwaffe. I don't know if he pronounces it the German way, if there's an American way of saying it. And Mere Mortals will be on tonight's show, as well as Lars Lyndorff from Steel Inferno, But right there, Savage Grace, Fight for Your Life with the Doctor, Chris Logue on guitar. Chris Logue, I guess, sort of semi put the band back together a while ago with just him in it. And they played at the Keepers of the Flame Festival in Mexico. It was only him with some Mexican band that they used as like a backing group, and it was only really him playing on there. So I don't really consider that Savage Grace, but the Dominatrix, that first record from back in 1983, it was definitely a masterpiece in my opinion. Still have it in my collection. Played on a regular basis. Came out of Metal Blade. John Burke on vocals, Chris Logue on guitar, Kenny Powell for a moment on guitar, Brian East and Don Finch the third. What an amazing record that was. They didn't really follow it up with anything that I was impressed with. I kind of lost it for the band after that. Master of the Skies came out, had a different singer in it. After the Fall from Grace kind of fell apart, and the band was pretty much over and done with by the mid to late 80s. But they are back today if you consider Chris Logue, Savage Grace in any way, shape, or form. All right, we got a great show tonight. Like I said, the last one of the year. December's upon us, man. We got a really fast December because the holidays fall on Sunday nights this year. Christmas Day and New Year's Day, so there probably won't be any live shows those 2 days, but we'll record our holiday episodes and get them up for people to listen to. All right, let's keep the music flowing here. We're going to talk to Robin in about 25 minutes or so. Here's Air Raid, Line of Danger.
it's alright. I met a nice lady on the street last night. She said, come on home. And you know that I said it's alright. Don't you know it's alright? You know it's alright. I know it's alright. We know it's
some Troy in there. Right before that, Dietrich. That band had an EP out in '82, I believe. It was on a 10-inch vinyl. The band was named after the singer, I believe, Brad Dietrich, and that song was on the Metal Massacre 2 compilation. This whole week I've been going through all the old Metal Massacres. I think I got to about number 8. I still have a few more to get through. You know, it's been decades since I've played them, so I've been having a good time going back through some of those bands. Most of them, especially the early bands, all went on to do something, but not all of them. I thought that was Robert calling in. Okay, I got him on the other line. We'll talk to him in a few minutes. So let's get back to what he was saying. Something about the Metal Massacre stuff over there. Most of the bands that were on those Metal Massacre records went on to do a lot of other things. And, you know, we all have those records. That phone call threw me off. I apologize. All right. All right, let's get on one or two more songs, then we'll get Robert on the line. How about we do some Metal Church? It's been a couple of weeks since I've played that. I've just been on a big Metal Church kick lately, too. This band should have really went on to do so much more and been so much bigger than they are. I mean, I absolutely love these guys. Here we go again. I'm going to play Metal Church. Let me see who's calling on the other line. This is the station line, so I don't know why it's ringing if it isn't Robert, but bear with me here. All right, I apologize. That was the guest from next week's show. He got the weeks kind of confused. I was saying nobody would be calling on that number to the station unless they were calling in for an interview. So that was what the thing was, but I apologize. Right there, Metal Church, Battalions. I was saying one of the greatest bands ever and one of the best lineups you could ever imagine. I mean, it's not the original lineup because Metal Church had a lot of different people in the band. Before that classic lineup. But, with David Wayne, Kurt Vanderhoof, Craig Wells, Duke Erickson, and Kirk Arrington, that was the lineup. They should have went on to bigger and better things. They just couldn't keep it together, They released that first record on their own label, Ground Zero Records. I believe Steamhammer kind of released it after that. I still have the original version of that record on Ground Zero. When The Dark came out, the band kind of broke a little bit. They got signed to Elektra Records, and things were happening for them. And then they're just going to keep it together after that. Things fell apart. A couple of years later, they came out with Blessing in Disguise. Mike Howe was now singing with the band. Kurt was actually not even in the band at that point. He left the band. Even though he did write almost all the music from that record and did a little bit of the guitar work on the album, he really wasn't a part of that lineup. Didn't come back to the band until David Wayne came back to the band with the Masterpiece record in '99, and that record kind of fell flat and went nowhere. But what a great band. We're going to find out, I guess, real soon who the new singer is. It doesn't look like they went with anybody that's known. I think they went with a complete unknown this time, which is probably the best thing to do. But we'll see. But when I had Kurt on the show, when he first got Mike Howe back in the band, he said if anything ever happened and Mike wasn't in the band anymore, that would be it. He didn't want to go on with a different singer and start this all over again. But I guess he changed his tune. So we'll see who's coming in. We'll see what's happening. All right, how about we play some Luftwaffe? I don't know the proper way to say the name, if it's the real German way or an Americanized version of it, but we'll do that. We'll get Robert on the phone right after that. So how about we do Ringmaster?
Crowded late last night as I made my way to the big tent
That's some really good stuff over there. Okay, let's get Robert on the line right now and get this interview going. Bear with me here while we dial him up.
Hello.
Robert, this is Mike. You're on the air live for our interview. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. It's a pleasure to talk to you today. I have to tell you, I have to thank heaven and hell for giving us back this music, man. It's been a long time.
Oh yeah, you'll for sure. Definitely a long time.
Well, how did it all come about? How did the interest all of a sudden start up again with Mere Mortals? And how do you pronounce it? Is it the German version, Luftwaffe, or is it an Americanized version?
Luftwaffe.
I thought so.
Luftwaffe. That's how we pronounce it. Yep.
But that's a tongue twister.
You ain't kidding. But we thought it was kind of a cool name because it does mean air power, and we were really into the German metal stuff, early Scorpions and MSG, and the UFO type stuff. That's what we were into. So we figured that would definitely let people know what we were trying to do.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, I mean, when that band came out, it was very early on in the metal scene. The underground scene was really just starting to form and take off. So, I mean, not a lot of things to draw from, not a lot of influences. And when I listen to that record, I'm like, these guys were all over the place. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like Frank Zappa meets, Accept meets the Scorpions meets like 100,000 other different things. It was just unreal what you created with that album.
Well, we were trying to do something different, and myself, I was more the rock guy, and then Tim Gillis, who was the drummer, he was the lyricist, but he was definitely a prog guy. So that between the two of us, we wrote the music, composed the music, and the other two guys, Dave Slife, who was the singer, and Paul St. James, who played bass, they just kind of went along with our craziness, and that's what we had. And we had an outrageous show that went along with all this. So, yeah, it was good times for sure.
When you're putting this music together for the first time and you're hearing it come through, I mean, do you say to yourself, are people going to get this? I mean, are we like going really out on a limb over here? Because, it can go two ways. You want to be so different that people just are drawn to it because they don't know what you're doing, but you also want to have a sort of semi-commercial appeal so you can actually sell your music.
Well, I think the situation was back then that we didn't, we never thought that about getting a record deal or anything like that. We just wanted people to know that we were out there, me and Gillis. We were young at that point. In 82, I was 21. So we were just trying to make a name for ourselves. And really, that was just, we weren't really trying to be weird. It was just, that's what happened. It was like a hybrid culmination of his, listening to prog music, and me, the rock stuff that I liked. And those two things together, that's just how it came about.
Yeah, it was a great combination. But I mean, you recorded the record. I mean, I guess being that young, you did everything on your own. But there was no label interest at the time, where you just couldn't get it put out.
No, we never even thought of that. We never even thought, let's try to get label interest. We were just playing weekend warriors, and maybe 3 times a week back then playing. But you have to remember, metal music was not really that big in vogue yet. I mean, it was just starting to come into its own. As a matter of fact, we used to have to play a whole set of Led Zeppelin to get in the club. So we would dress like Zeppelin and play a whole set of Zeppelin, and then we played a set of our original music at the end, and in the middle we would play all the metal hits. That's
being up in Utica, New York, I mean, how was the scene back then? Because I mean, I'm from New York myself, down in the city, but between, I'm guessing, Albany and Schenectady in that area, I mean, the city had a great scene, a vibrant scene. You also had Cortland, which had a really good thing going on with the Rods and Manowar, and a lot of recording took place there. But how was it up a little further in Utica? Was there enough of a scene, to get interested in music and the bands?
Well, yeah, there was definitely, I that's what I do. I'm an engineer and a producer. So I was lucky. When I was young, I got in with a guy who was a producer and had a studio, and I interned with him. And then I interned with the other studio that we had in town. And then subsequently in '88, I opened my own studio. So I was lucky. I would stay, as close as I could to the scene. I really never knew how to do anything else but music. So we kind of were pioneers in making a scene. We tried to foster the younger bands, and we had people, a few people who kind of believed us. There's a local radio station here at that time called 96.9 WOUR, and there was a local jock named Jerry Krause. They used to call him the Doctor, and he really supported us, and that's what helped us out a lot. And then we had an agent here too who helped us too, Tony C. He took a chance on us. I think we were just lucky to have a few people that really, they seen. You have to see the show to really appreciate what we were doing. It was pretty outrageous.
I mean, nobody has cell phones back then. You had to look around like a 200-pound camera to film something. But is there any video footage available of anything you did back then? Oh yeah,
there is. Yeah, there is. There's a reunion show that I stumbled upon from '87, so it wasn't so far off when we had stopped playing, and it's really just great. And we did have a videographer guy who was out with us a lot, but he passed away during COVID. A lot of that stuff was lost, and it's been 40 years now, just about. So I have some of it and some pictures, and I think Jeremy from Heaven and Hell Records, he really sparked me to start looking for that stuff and really getting back into it. And we never released that record, so it was just perfect timing. After Mere Mortals, he said, well, what about Luftwaffe? And I said, sure, let's do it. So that's pretty much how it came out.
Yeah, I'm glad that it did, because most people haven't heard this, so this is going to be a surprise when they hear this music, what came out of it back then. And like I said, you were young guys, 21 years old. You were just looking to have fun. You weren't planning on putting it out as a record, but what was the game plan at that time? Because the band did go on for quite a few years before,
Yeah, we recorded that stuff, Mike, in the end, like just near the end. And the only reason why we recorded it was because myself and Gillis said, we should record this stuff and have it for prosperity. So when we recorded that, the band was just about done, and we just wanted to have it. So and then it just sat for many, many years. We did go in a little time there and work on it a little bit to make sure that it sounded a little bit finished, because it really wasn't totally finished, but that was years and years ago, and it sat. So finally we ended up putting it out. Thank God that Jeremy, took a chance, because anybody would have to take a chance to put that record out. It's definitely very strange.
It is, but I tell you, after you play it once or twice, you're kind of drawn to it. It's like a train wreck where you can't look away. Like, I gotta go back and listen to that again. There's just something there that's very catchy. I mean, like I said, it's all over the place, but it works. I mean, everything kind of fits together and flows nicely. I think that's why it's such a great record.
Well, I really appreciate that, Mike. I always thought the songs were cool. I mean, I would come up with the title, The Chair. And I used to tell Gil, I'd say to him, hey, Gil, how about writing a song about a guy in a wheelchair? And he'd come back with the greatest lyrics. Or what about a song about the ringmaster? And he'd come back with these lyrics, and I'd pen the music, and all of a sudden we had something. And, we got out there and really, we did a show. I mean, we had that wheelchair on stage, and he dressed like a ringmaster. I mean, we used to dress as nuns. I mean, we did a whole set called Nun Metal, where we were all dressed as nuns, including the crew. It was really something.
That's funny. I really hope more video footage of this can pop up, and I would love to see this if you could actually put it together into a package.
I'll have to send you some stuff. I'll have to send you some I have to put it up on, I have to at least put some of it up on YouTube and send you a link. There is a Luftwaffe clip on YouTube from the second reunion show, and I think it's a couple of covers, us opening with Restless and Wild, into like heading out to the highway, and then right into maybe Heartbreaker or one of those Zeppelin songs, because we did a very good job with Zeppelin. Dave could really sing that stuff. Slife could sing that at that point.
Yeah. Well, you said, after you recorded, you kind of knew the band was over and done with. It didn't seem like it was much longer after that Mere Mortals came about. It seems like one went right into the other.
Yeah. Almost about immediately. We were doing a show in Ogdensburg, New York, and believe it or not, they have a dome there. And it was our last show, and we were on stage. Luftwaffe was on stage, and I said to the singer, Dave, at that time, he said, look, man, I want to do this other thing. I got an idea. And the next day, the band was over, and we started forming the idea of Mere Mortals. A little bit, definitely more commercial, but it's where music was heading. And then we were really interested in trying to get a deal. I mean, at that point now, we're 23, 24 years old. Let's try to do something.
Sure. Does it get to a point where you say to yourself, music is my life. This is what I love doing. Maybe I like hard rock more than heavy metal. I might like classical more than jazz, but I have to play what's relevant and what's going to maybe, give me the shot to make it. So was that the case with Mere Mortals, where it went in a much more commercial AOR direction? I mean, seeming that it came from Luftwaffe so quickly to that, it seems like you already had a game plan on what you wanted to do, and it just didn't come about like hey, let's put a band together and see what we can come up with.
No, I definitely had the plan. I mean, I didn't have the name. I wanted to call the band White Knight, I think, at that point. We lucked out. We had a guy who had a barn with a PA system in it and he owned a lighting company and PA company and a stage, and I rented that from him, and we went right in the rehearsals with the Mere Mortals idea as such, and started working up that material. And it just seemed to fall in place. It was all the same guys from Luftwaffe, except for the drummer, but that drummer was the guy who played the last Luftwaffe show because our drummer had been injured. So it was the four same guys. I mean, it didn't end that way. Paul, the bass player, went on to play with Drive, she said, from New York City.
Oh, yeah.
And, he went on to do that, so which was a really good opportunity because he was a few years younger than me, and he was very young going into that. And we grabbed another bass player, Bill Carmen, who played in Mere Mortals, who was just fantastic. And then we added Vince Cavo, who was a keyboard player and guitar player and sang great high harmonies. And, it's just where my music, where I was evolving. I wanted to write those kind of songs.
Was everybody else in the band on board with going in that direction, or was there any resistance from somebody saying maybe I want to keep it the other way or do something a little different? Was everybody, going along for the ride?
I think, they all did. I think that, if you see, even Paul went to Drive, which wasn't a heavy band. Dave, the singer, he was a great metal singer, but he just had great pipes all the way around. And I don't think he wanted to, wear those chains on stage anymore. Like, we wanted to clean it up a little bit. You didn't get a lot of chicks out for Luftwaffe. It was more of a guy-based thing. And then, I think they always kind of believed in my writing too. So, I wrote everything in Mere Mortals. I wrote just like 99% of that stuff, and the guys were really, really behind it, which was terrific.
Well, if Luftwaffe wasn't a hard enough name for people to remember, you said, you know what, let's come out with some really long title for this record. Stunt. Yeah. And we'll put it out like that. People wouldn't expect a title like that or something that would be more commercially acceptable because, you want to get that audience where they could catch on to it. You just went with a title out of nowhere like that.
Well, for the first Mere Mortals record, you mean? Yeah. Omnia, well, that means everything lies veiled in numbers. We had the numerology thing kind of going. If you open the sleeve of the record there, you see the numerology 7-pointed seal there. I was just looking for trappings. It was just something to get people more locked into what we were doing.
You did that. Well, this is like 1985 now. And, I think the heavy metal scene kind of hit its peak right there. And that's when everything exploded. The bands were like, breaking big. You also had a lot of new wave music that was popular at the time, a lot of pop music. Did you find it difficult, like, where to fit in? Like, with everything going on, like, all the different genres? Because each one was kind of big in its own way.
Well, the Mere Mortals thing, it was really amazing that, we caught on right away here. It was like we didn't come out until the record was ready to come out. So we came out and kept it kind of cloaked. We came out gangbusters with that. People accepted it. I think at that point, too, though, you had to remember that people were listening to Survivor, and Spandau Ballet was kind of big, and Toto was already in place. So that's what we were kind of shooting in that realm with Mere Mortals. We were trying to go there with it. With Luftwaffe, we were really in unknown territory when we started that band because, you barely had – I mean, we would go out and play Queen of the Reich by Queensryche, and people thought it was our song. They didn't even know who they were yet.
Yeah.
So it was a mixed bag back then, and it really was we played up and down the East Coast. We didn't just play in Utica. We traveled with Luftwaffe. We played as many places that would have us. But it really was hard to find work at first. And then when it kind of caught on, we were done with it. We wanted to do something different. I definitely wanted to do something different. I wanted to be a little bit more conscious of a bigger demographic, I guess you might say.
Sure. There was a second record that came out, a different singer in the band. I think it was I want to say it was a little harder direction than the first record.
No, the second record's the same thing. It was him. It's Dave, the second record. The Mere Mortals record. It's the same guy on both records. And I don't know. That Pink record, the Immortalized record, is still kind of commercial. We never really got back to the heavy stuff. After that, when the band folded was like 1988 or 89. I think 88. I opened my own recording studio, Rock, and that's kind of how I got hooked up with Jeremy too, because I did produced a few of the bands that were on that label. I think you had Roy Costin on your show. I did his bands. I did DC Strut and Four Large Men. I produced those records for him. So yeah, I was on the map with that. I left music for a while as far as playing myself and started producing people and did quite a few records, maybe 400.
Wow, that's a pretty impressive catalog when you think about it. That's a lot of records. But
I worked my butt off.
Yeah, with Mere Mortals, I mean, when did you know it was over? I mean, this is it's like the writing on the wall, or you just say, when we're not going anywhere, it's not happening, let's just close it down.
What happened? The singer left. He decided to move to New York City. It was he left. He had some female he was interested with, and he wanted to pursue that. And we did tryouts for singers, and we found a guy. His name was Stearns Bull, and he was a good singer, but he was more of a Jeff Tate kind of guy, and it just didn't work. We played one show with him, and after that show, I just said, nah, I'm done with this. I was just over it. And I made the conscious decision in my head, maybe a couple weeks before that, is if this does fold, I'm going to open a recording studio. I mean, I had interned at a couple studios prior to that, so it was a career move, and it was a good move actually then.
I mean, what does it take to break up a band? I mean, because you hear a lot of people saying, the members either fight, they don't get along, or there's management issues, or they give it a certain amount of time. But you kind of know, when it's over. I mean, even though you put all your blood, sweat, and tears into it, is it hard to leave it behind?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, that band was really hard because that was all my music. It was definitely hard to leave it behind. And we had gone and done that Dance Party USA show, so we had national exposure there. We had record company interest at one point, but it just, once the singer left, the formula just was, you have to remember that singer is the same guy from Luftwaffe. So I had worked with him all through Luftwaffe and all through Mere Mortals, and we were good friends, and we're still friends to this day, but it just wasn't the same when he left. The spark was missing, and I had written for him. Everything was written in his keys, and without his voice, it just didn't seem right to me, and it was time to turn the page.
I know you said you gave up on the actual part of the music, but did you ever think about doing another band since that time?
Well, I did. Yes, I did. I actually had a band called Big Crush. We put 4 CDs out. We had 4 records out, and that just folded about 12 years ago when I lost the keyboard player. He was one of my best friends, and he had passed away, so we called it a day. But we had very good success with Big Crush. It was a very, very, very much like Toto. Very, very much. Very good vocals and really well put together LA-based material, that type of style.
Yeah. Every time you start up a new band, you say to yourself, oh, here we go again. We got to start this all over again. Or is it more like, there's that excitement to it? Say, hey, this is new, it's fresh, and, but there's a lot of work in building up the momentum to get those bands going. So is it like a catch-22?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And before that, I was the sideman almost, because I had produced, I know if you've heard of these guys, Taurus. I produced a record for Tony Taurus, and I was in that band Taurus for a while. So we toured on that record, his first record, and I still had the studio at that time, so I was kind of doing double duties. Also, I had shut the studio down for maybe about a year, and I went on the road with Suicidal Tendencies as Rocky's tech, and did a tour of Europe with Rage Against the Machine, their very first tour with Suicidal, and then went out with Megadeth on the Countdown to Extinction tour. So I did that for about a year and a half. Also, their other band too, their Infectious Grooves. I was on that Busload of Freaks tour. So I did get out and do that too, and then I came back to the studio for a while. So yeah, I tried to keep my career kind of interesting, and I tried to, I kept moving up the ladder, but I could never seem to get that hit. I did get a Grammy nomination for working on an engineering category for Boston's Corporate America record, but I never was able to really, parlay it any bigger than that. But it's definitely something I still do. I make records right to this day. As a matter of fact, I just had 3 records come out in the last 6 months.
The music business is a brutal one. You really gotta love it to be a part of it.
I don't know how to do anything else. You know, I teach also, so I have guitar students and bass students. I really don't know how to do anything else except music. So at my age now, I'm 61 now. I'm still consider myself viable, and I just keep shooting for the stars.
Well, now with the release again of Mere Mortals and people hearing Luftwaffe for the first time, is there any chance of bringing out the big bombs again and getting back up on stage with those guys?
It's bad because the drummer in Luftwaffe, he passed away about 7 months ago.
Oh,
and
wow.
which was Tim Gillis, who wrote the songs with me. So he's gone. And then Dave Slife, who was the singer in Mere Mortals and Luftwaffe, got into a very serious motorcycle accident, and he has like plates in his face and around his waist. He walks with a cane, and he was trached twice, so his voice isn't like it used to be anymore. So somehow the heavens said no more. So that was the end. Both of those bands could never be, brought back up on stage again.
You would never think of redoing it with other people? If it wasn't them, there's no way of doing it?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody could play Gillis's parts. And I know that nobody could sing those songs like Dave Slife did. He was the guy. He was just the guy. I mean,
Yeah.
I tried it once by bringing another guy, and it just didn't work. And you know what? As much as I love that material, it's in the past. I mean, I was honored that Jeremy had contacted me about putting out the stuff, and I mean, it's just fantastic, and it's been great. We had like a little record release where we just invited friends to a corner bar and just to see who would show up, and it was mobbed. I mean, it was mobbed, which was great. It was really great. It was great for Paul and for Dave and for myself to be rock stars for like 2.5 hours, and then I came back home at 10 o'clock at night. So
Yeah.
you know how it goes.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, did you think like 30, 40 years later there would be interest in this music? Did you think people just forgot about the bands and everything that you did?
Well, I always thought, you see, Mere Mortals never came out on CD. It was only on vinyl. I always thought that maybe at some point I would try to get those out on CD, but I knew that the Luftwaffe stuff was good, but it had to be somebody really crazy to want to take a shot to put that stuff out. And I mean, I know you're friends with Jeremy. He's very eclectic in his taste, and
Yeah.
I think even he was a little worried to put this stuff out because it is definitely different. He had friends listen to it, and they really couldn't categorize it. But that's to his being smart as he is, I think it's a good record, and I think people are really going to last on to it.
I think so too. I mean, over the last few decades, have you ever gone back to any of these things and listened to them again over to see like what you did, or is this like kind of the first time that you really had like an in-depth look at all this old music that you put out?
Well, it's kind of cool is my son's 20, and he's an autistic kid, and I'm with him all the time. And I've talked about Luftwaffe with him, but I never sat and went over the lyrics with him and showed him. I found the videos and had him digitized and showed him that stuff and the Mere Mortal stuff. And for me, it's great because he gets to see, a look in the, how crazy his dad was back then. Still kind of crazy now, but it's just a good thing. You know what I mean? I went back then, but I didn't always go back and listen to it. No, but people always bring it up. I'd run into people on the streets and say, Bob, Luftwaffe, they'll yell Luftwaffe, or they'll remember Mere Mortals. Mere Mortals was very popular around here. So yeah, I mean, every once in a while, but I never ever thought that somebody would reissue this stuff, and I think it's just really great that they did.
It is, and it's going to find a whole new audience. Because what's funny is, like, when we were younger, I never really listened to my parents' music. I wanted to find my own way. But these kids today are so big into the '70s and the '80s. They like love and live for everything that we went through back then, and it's like a whole new audience that you're going to find that with this music, which I think is great.
Yeah, it is great, and Luftwaffe is so tongue in cheek, and the lyrics are so out there that I think kids would like to listen to it. I mean, trying to look voodoo in a snakeskin tutu. I mean, come on, the guy was so ahead of his time. Like you said, it was definitely a Zappa-esque kind of thing, but his lyrics and somehow melded with my music, and I think people are really going to. I'm hoping that people will really take a liking to it, and that it'll live on forever.
I'm sure they will. You kind of created magic back then. You didn't realize it when you were doing it. You weren't planning on anything going with it. But, all these years later, it comes out, and people are like, I don't know what to make of this. And it's like, holy cow, this is really good. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, it's great. It's really great. And I remastered the stuff before giving it to Jeremy. And just sitting there remastering it brought back so many memories. of cutting those tracks. I mean, all those basic tracks were cut live on the floor, and I mean the lead vocal was definitely overdubbed in some guitar tracks here and there, but it was basically cut as a band in a room, just blowing through the tracks. And I remember we cut all those 8 tracks were cut in one day in the course of maybe 4 or 5 hours, and then of course there was overdubs and stuff like that. But the basic tracks went down really solid, and we had played together in a little bit because Gillis had left the band. There was a different drummer in there. He came back to do these tracks, which was awesome.
True. I mean, there's always those like Monday morning quarterback moves where you say, if we did this, if we did that, maybe something would be different. Do you ever feel that way about any of the moves that you made with any of the 2 bands?
Yes and no. I don't think Luftwaffe, we were ever destined to make something happen with that because we never thought that way. Mere Mortals, on the other hand, I think if the keyboard player came out front and was the lead vocalist, which I wanted him to, Vince, we could have kept the thing rolling because we had more material. We were ready to record. We had just got done. There's a little documentary that was filmed. We had legs then. It was still really happening, but the wind just got knocked out of my sails. It just, after the singer left and we just couldn't replace him, it just didn't sound the same. I just lost it. I wanted our keyboard player to step up. He could have done it. He just wasn't ready. He wasn't a front guy. But later on, of course, he became the front man in my band Big Crush and sang on 3 of those 4 records. So you just never know. You can't ever think back and say shoulda, woulda, coulda. I just always, as you can see, I always just kept moving forward.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a chemistry thing too. I mean, you knew what you had with that singer, and it worked, and that's the way you had the band envisioned in your mind. That's the only way you wanted to see it. And when it doesn't work like that, you kind of lose a little. It's not there anymore.
Sure.
I get that. You have a band like AC/DC. You replaced Bon Scott with Brian Johnson, and you came in bigger than you were before. And it made it work for them. But It doesn't happen all the time for everybody. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. No, sometimes it doesn't. And when you stand next to somebody on stage for 3, 4, 5 years, it's you're almost married to them. So you get used to a certain thing. It was really hard to change that for me.
That's true. Hey, Robert, I appreciate talking. I'm going to have to let you go because I want to get on some more of your music, and I have another guest waiting in the wings to come on. But it's been a pleasure talking with you today. And you know what? If anything else comes out, we're going to do this again. I'm hoping to get some videos of that Luftwaffe. I'm hoping you find them. I will. Love to see that stage show.
Mike.
But you take care, my friend. It was great talking to you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Now, take care. Bye.
All right, let's get on some Mere Mortals, and then we got to get to Lars in a few minutes. Here's Morning Light.
Every night you say you want to take me to the limit, and that's not fair. I've been searching for so long for someone like you, but now I'm scared. cry for the spider. We cry for the spider. Cry.
Tarantula. Cry for the Spider, Tarantula. I want to thank Raw for being on tonight's show, in case I forget to say it later on, because we're going to get through the next interview, and then I got to wrap things up here tonight because I have my colonoscopy in the morning, and the prep work is starting to kick in, if you know what I'm saying here. All right, right there, Tarantula, Cry for the Spider. Before that, Mere Mortals with Morning Light. We got a great bunch of guests coming up in December. I just spoke to Leda Leone before. She'll be on in 2 weeks. We're going to talk about her new record. I can't wait. I love having Leda on the show. She's always a fun person to talk to. And we got Invid and Maddox and a few other bands lined up. And then we have our holiday shows to wrap up the year. But let's keep the music flowing here. Oh, last week I was supposed to go see Wasp. They played in New Jersey. I just didn't want to get off the couch and go. Like Rob was saying, he did his little record release thing and he went back home by 10 o'clock at night. That's how I feel these days. It's harder and harder to drag myself out of the house to go to a show. But they were playing, but Armor Saint was open up. I really wanted to see Armor Saint more than Wasp because I haven't seen Armor Saint since like 1984. And Wasp, I have to be honest with you, Blackie's using backing vocals, and he does like these Q&As before the show. I think people have to pay to be a part of it. They can ask him questions, and doesn't even get out of the chair to go talk to anybody or shake their hand or see them. Somebody said about using backing vocals, and he says, when I play live, when I record in the studio, I have laid vocals, like there are 8 or 9 different layers of vocals on there, so I want to recreate that live, so that's why I'm doing it. But if you've seen any of the clips of him performing live, it's almost like complete lip syncing. There's one thing to having 2 or 3 vocal tracks going on in the background for harmonization, but that's what you have other people on stage to do. You have another guitar player and a bass player and a drummer. They can do those extra vocals. He's lip syncing. I mean, the track that he's singing to is like purely off a record. I mean, that's how bad it is. And then you had Armor Saint playing, and John Bush wasn't feeling good, so he didn't play for a couple of shows. I mean, they put Jason McMaster in again. He's just filled in for Mark and Accept. I mean, he's like the go-to guy now. And it's something that I don't like. If I'm paying to see Armor Saint live, I want to see John Bush singing. I don't want to see Gonzo on drums alone or, the guitar player. I want to see John Bush. I want to see the singer performing. And I understand singers get sick, and we're not like we're 20 years old anymore. We can kind of fight through it. But then, you know what? I'd rather you cancel the show and give me back my money than to see another guy come in singing those songs. It's a cop-out, and I don't like that. A lot of bands are doing it more and more now when they can't get a key member of the band to perform because they don't feel good. Instead of canceling and rescheduling it because they lose too much money that way, they're just getting fill-ins, and I just think it's a shitty thing to do. I have to be honest with you. All right, let's get on one more set of music. We'll get to the next interview while I make a little trip to the boys' room. Here's Maltese Falcon, Metal Rush.
You can smell the sweat, feel the sparks smashing in your head. midnight, flashing from his spine. You're fit for fight, so he doesn't have a chance. Just like he's dead, but you're living in a trap, so not to rush. Feel the balls. Oh, man, the kids are fighting. You feel so strong and the girls they like. You're fit for fight, feeling so strong it's like under the night. Under the night.
what a great set of music over there. I haven't heard Dark Wizard in a very long time. Trip to Doom. Before that, Cyclone Fall Under His Command. And Maltese Falcon, Metal Rush. Cyclone's going to be in the States next year. I don't know if they're doing just the Blades of Steel Festival in Wisconsin, or if they're going to be out on tour. I have no idea yet, but they're definitely going to be there. So if you're looking to see the band, that's the place to be next year. All right, let's get to this interview with Lars Lyndorff from Steel Inferno. We'll play a couple of songs off the new record, and then we're going to wrap things up here tonight. So here you go. Here's Caught by Her Web.
headset on because there's a lot of drumming going around here.
Okay.
It's the first time I'm using my phone for this one, so I just gotta figure out how to. Otherwise, I just have to drop the headset and. Yeah, okay. So, okay.
Perfect.
I'll skip the headset and just do it like this.
Okay. It's all audio anyway, so we're okay.
Okay, cool.
I have to tell you, I came into the band a couple of years ago with your last record, and it blew me away. And when this new one came out, Evil Rain, I was like, wow. I mean, I didn't know where the band was going to go. A new singer, the pandemic.
So, now they came on. So you have to say I heard Evil Rain, and then yeah.
I was saying I became a fan of the band when the last record came out, 2020. And, I was like, 2 years go by, there's a new singer in the band, the pandemic hit, and everything kind of got, put on hold in the world. And I didn't know how the band was going to sound. And when I put the new record on, I was blown away. I mean, it's hard to replace the singer of a band, especially when you go from a female to a male. But you guys managed to do it.
Yeah, I think so too. Definitely.
Well, how did it all come about? I mean, Karen was with the band for the first two records. Very distinctive sound and voice and band. What caused the change?
Karen, she just didn't feel like it just didn't have any more fun being in the band, and so there were absolutely no hard feelings. She just was starting to feel like it was becoming another day job, and when you start feeling like that about your music, your passion, then you should do the obvious thing and don't play anymore because if it's not fun, don't do it. And so that's pretty much the story. No drama or no anything. Just getting a little fed up with it's not fun anymore. So
sure, when it's not fun, it shows in your performance. I mean, you can't put your heart into it if you're not really having a good time doing it.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, Evil Rain comes out, like I says, and the first song I hear, is Siren of the Air, and it kind of blew me away. And I was like, all right, these guys really found, I think, the right replacement for Karen, because I think if you went with another female singer, it might not have worked out right. So I think going with, the new one, it really worked.
It definitely, we had the opportunity to go in a lot of different directions suddenly because we weren't constrained by, she has to sound. She has to sound exactly like Karen. So you're probably right. If we had gone with another female singer, we would have to say, try to do it a little more. Karen, she used to do it like this. And right now, we're just like, no, we are not starting from scratch, but almost, just saying we can do whatever we want. And what we wanted to do was, I guess, pursue a more pure metal-oriented direction compared to the first two albums, which had some, of course, classic speed metals, thrash oriented, new wave songs, but it also had it had some kind of a little more rockish vibe, in the whole some of the constructions. And this album, I thought, okay, no more, not all the more experimental songs that were the first two albums. I don't think they're there now. They're more cut to the bone in the direction we want to go. That's at least how I perceive the songs.
I agree completely. I mean, how did you come across Chris? Was he somebody that you knew?
He played in a band some years ago that we played with. But we didn't really know him. But it happened. He came to one of our shows when we had a show with Burning Witches, and we started talking, and then we became friends on Facebook, and then because of that, he saw when we put up an ad that we were looking for a new singer, and said, "Hey, yeah, I'm ready to do." He had a break doing metal for some years, and so he wanted to started looking for a band again, and then we hooked up just before, like a couple of weeks before the pandemic hit, and we, just said, okay. So we had time to start writing new songs for new material without being constrained by having to do live shows or anything. So we had quite a long period where we just could focus on getting Christian into the band and writing new songs.
I guess in a way, maybe the pandemic kind of helped out with the band, because you did have that time to put into getting this new lineup together and making it click and making it sound right. Because, You always hear from bands like in the very beginning, you have a whole bunch of songs that you write and you work on, then you get that first record and you put it out. Now you're in the studio trying to write new songs because you're under like a time constraint, I guess, in a way, to have a new product put out, and it does affect the songwriting when you have to write from the studio to an album where you already have a lot of songs in the bag before that first album comes out. I think that's kind of like what happened with this record. It gave you that time to kind of flesh out the sound the band was going to go with.
Definitely. We were able to just focus on this is what we want to do. So we and we think we succeeded in doing that. When I look at this, all the songs, they're all we have a couple of slower songs, but they're very much in it's like a whole album. You can in the same that goes in the same direction, and it's pretty nice.
Oh, absolutely. Because you were all together for this record and working on it and coming up with the sound that works around, Chris's voice and what you want to do with him. Did you have to sit down before he got into the band and say, how's it going to work with, Aesthetics of Decay and There Stood Still, with him singing those songs? Because there would definitely be a different vibe to them with him on vocals.
Yeah, we currently we only live at the moment. We probably only play like 4 or 5 of the old songs because his vocal range is very different than Karen's, and the singing style is very different also. So we are occasionally trying to find some of the old songs that he can sing, but sometimes it's quite hard. But yeah, like songs like Aesthetics of Decay and City Lights, we can play those. But as one of like the title songs from and the Earth Stood Still, he's not really able to sing that one. He it's just he has a different singing style. So some of the songs, even though there are some songs that we played for a long time with Karen live, we just don't play them anymore. And I mean, luckily we got a whole new album with killer songs that we can choose from. So we're not like we still have to cut the set list short every time anyway. So it's not like we're missing material to play live, but.
That's true. Would you think about going back and re-recording some of the older songs that do work with Christoph vocals?
I wouldn't rule it out, but it would probably not for albums though. It would probably be more for either for fun, putting on Bandcamp, YouTube, or putting them on some B-side if we ever release a 70s single or a Japanese version, something like that. We would definitely we were considering doing some of that, but for not for the album. We think that it's one period where we did those songs. So no, I don't think for an album.
Yeah. So many bands, if they find it very hard to let go of the past and let go of things they did before, especially when it's their first album or second record. But you seem very willing to like move on and just keep moving the band forward based on where you are now.
Definitely, that's now we're already focused because this when you record an album, it takes at least almost 6 months or sometimes a whole year before it gets released. And we went into the studio back in February, and of course we were ready to go into the studio way before February. So all the songs, they're more than a year, probably at least a year old now, the newest ones of the old songs. So I mean, we're already working on new songs right now. So even though the album just came out, we're just like eager to start getting on creating new material, and it's probably a good time because right now we're getting the reviews, we're getting the feedback, what works on the album, and we can start to incorporate that and say, hey, this really works. And so it's probably it's a good time to start being creative again. Of course, we want to go out and play shows, but right now we also have to focus on the next album.
That's true. I mean, the first record was out on Inferno Records, a very well-known label, but you put the second record out on your own, I believe. You went independent on that one.
No, actually, the first CD was out on Inferno Records, and the album came out on Deadbangers Productions, which is a small Danish label. That was the vinyl version and the cassette version. And the second album, it was released by Deadbangers Productions, the album, and pretty much the same guy, but he had a sub label for CDs only. But so it's the owner of a record shop called the record shop is called Mephisto. He has this label called Deadbangers Productions. So this guy who's been in the Danish underground for ages. He used to do a Deadbangers synth with another friend, and so they've been active in the Danish metal underground for many years, and he only releases the albums that he really likes. So
Yeah. The new record is coming out through From the Vault. They have a great distribution system and a great PR team behind them. Back in the 80s, you had to get signed to a label, whether it was an underground label or a major label for distribution, and just to get the name of the band out there, there was no other way. But today with the internet, I mean, you could go on there on your own, promote your band, click a button. I mean, is it still important to have a label backing a band up today?
well, we tried both. We tried doing independent releases with the single Arcade Warrior and with the what we called the demo, which was basically an EP, but we didn't want to call it an EP, and as well with the especially with And the Earth Stood Still, which was pretty much at least not distribution wise, but promotion wise, we had to do all the work ourselves, and we could have, of course, we could have done a lot more, but it's real hard work. You have to do a lot of work, and a lot of sins. They don't take it seriously when the band writes. They don't reply you back. You don't hear anything. So you have to be, yeah, you have to be 100% DIY into the do-it-yourself thing, and have a lot of time doing it, and finding joy in doing it, because honestly it was part of what it started taking joy away from me, at least, because I had to do a lot of it. So definitely I think that having a label, being able to support you with the promotion, with the getting the reviews and giving feedback, is a tremendous advantage compared to doing it yourself. So even if you can put on your music online, there's a big difference, at least from the band perspective, suddenly, because now we know that we're having a lot of feedback on the album, and we know people suddenly know that we exist in a way I wouldn't have imagined a year ago. So I would definitely say no way. It's people who say that record labels are dead. They're definitely exaggerating, or they haven't tried putting out an album themselves.
No, that's true. I mean, I think our music scene right now, the metal world, is in a better place than it has been in a very long time. A lot of bands coming out, good quality bands, a lot of great productions, a lot of labels popping up that are really, supporting these bands. Something that was kind of missing, I think, in the 80s.
Mm. Yeah, because that's a good thing about the internet, that even a small label can suddenly have more promotion. That's a good thing about it. You have a space for the smaller labels like Deadbangers Productions. I wouldn't necessarily call From the Vault a small label, because it's sub label from one of the bigger ones, but a lot of like Jawbreaker Records in Sweden, and there are a lot of small labels popping up here and there, and um, because of the internet, you can actually get in contact with them, and they can get a distribution.
That's true. I mean, how is it playing locally today? Because, a lot of bands weren't able to travel over the last 2 years. Is there enough of a scene in Copenhagen to keep the band active? Or do you really find you have to kind of branch out all over Europe?
We're definitely aiming for branching out more in Europe, especially Germany. We would like to play more there, and but we've had quite success with playing shows both in Copenhagen, but also especially a little further away from Copenhagen in Jutland, which is like, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours from Copenhagen, which is compared to in a transatlantic comparison, still short. But in Denmark, it would be, you can hardly get any further away in a Danish context. But we had that's where we have played some of our best shows. It's actually outside of Copenhagen.
Yeah. Do you find yourself having to pick and choose where and when you play, or are you willing to take on any show anywhere? Because some bands, they want to just like try to get onto that festival circuit and go from country to country, just playing the festivals. Other bands will go out for weeks at a time, playing every club they can get into. I mean, is there a game plan when it comes to getting the band out there to play live?
That's what we actually at the moment we're discussing what how we should do it. If we should go just for the festival jobs, or we should just do the 2 weeks tour. We haven't really decided on that yet because some of us have kids full time jobs, and two of the other guys don't. So it's we're in different positions to do that. So we haven't quite figured out exactly what we want to do. Because we wanted, we also wanted to wait just to see what happens when this album comes out. Do we get the invitations, or do we have to start breaking down doors and saying, "Hey, we're here"?
Yeah.
We'll probably do both, but so we just we it's hard to get shows when you when you don't have an album out yet. So at least
Sure.
outside of the known circles, the Copenhagen metal area and the Danish festival, which pretty much know us.
Yeah. Looking at some of the reviews, for Evil Rain, I haven't seen a bad review yet. But does it bother you when people give you a bad review? Because I mean, there's a way of doing it. We say, well, Steel Inferno is not my kind of band, but I like what they're doing. But then there's like the people that are very mean and very nasty about it, just for the sake of being mean. I mean, do you really read a lot into the reviews, or do you kind of know this is our music and I know what we're creating and it's good?
So I'm not sure I understand the question. So what's
I
if
would
we had
say
any bad reviews?
for Evil Rain, there's been a lot of good reviews in the
Yes.
magazines and online. Nobody has anything bad to say about it, but there's always that one person that wants to say something bad just because they want to make trouble. Does it bother you when people write negative stuff about the band?
Uh, Not that if they don't like the music, but sometimes what bothers me is more that if they don't try to understand our music, that bothers me more because I have we have a very clear idea of what kind of scene we're a certain part of the 80s scene that we're inspired by, and a certain scene at the moment that we're aspiring to be part of. So if you don't understand where we're coming from and what we're aiming at, then it sometimes bothers me a little bit because then as an interviewer or as a reviewer you haven't done your job, honestly, because sometimes some of the questions they ask me, oh, where do you come from, what do you do, come on, just like ask us about our music, ask us about how we work creatively, just but luckily a lot of the reviews I read, they really understand it very well, and they get the references that we think, yes, this is, they understand it, thank you. So but sometimes you bump into these couple of reviews and say, come on, this is a lazy job. It's more that I never read anything real mean, really.
Yeah. The band definitely has its foot in the 80s, but it's so much more than that. I mean, you could hear all the influences that have come out over the decade, whether it's been locally or internationally. You didn't just say, hey, we're going to be an 80s metal band. There's a lot going on that's very modern and very new, mixed in with your sound.
Definitely, I would, because I mean, we most of us didn't. We of course we grew up listening to the classic 80s metal bands, but the our bassist, he was young in the 80s, but at least three of us, we were young in the early 90s, so it was more a mix between punk, death metal, and hardcore, and different and thrash metal. So we had, of course, a different approach to it. And Christian, our singer, he's only in his 20s, so of course he didn't grow up listening to that. Of course he listened to it, but you cannot help getting inspired by the current scene in some way. And so, but at least it's probably more like how we don't want to sound. But definitely it's not. We steal from a lot of different inspirations, I would say.
Oh, you can hear it in all of your songs and all of your music. I mean, it's been 10 years since the band's been formed. When you first got together and you wanted to start this band, Was there a distinctive sound that you were looking for, or did it come about when you guys started playing together for the first time, or did you know, I want to kind of combine all of these styles together. This is what I want to do. Here's where I want to go. Or did it just come out more organically, where when you started writing and playing together, you created, you know, the Steel Inferno sound and said, "Hey, we have something here."
I had definitely had some clear ideas on which direction I wanted to go, which was definitely more an early accept Judas Priest oriented direction, and but also I probably wanted it to be a little harder in the beginning. But then Karen joined and suddenly said, "Holy shit! We don't have to play that hard to have a powerful expression." And so we tried to develop and experiment with Karen as a singer, because Karen, she had never sung in a metal band before, so she was come from a hard rock background. So we had a lot of it was definitely a more experimental period in the band's existence. So, but yes, it was more from a European oriented sound, whereas the new album, I would say, probably aiming a little more at a at a US power metal, early speed thrash metal oriented sound more. So it's more US oriented sound we have on the new album, I would say.
I agree. I mean, is Steel Inferno the kind of band that would keep evolving from album to album, always doing something new, something different? Or do you kind of feel like, you know, you hit your groove and, you know, this is where you're going to go with it right now?
Uh, I think we kind of like, we want to develop the sound that we have on this album, but take it further, and definitely we know probably trying to it would be boring just to write another, oh, then we need another breakout, then we need another song like No Escape, then we need another one like this. I think with that we need to throw in some new inspirations from here and there. And I have absolutely no idea what those ideas could be. It could be anything from incorporating more progressive rock elements, more 70s styles sound. It could be even 80s synth pop. I have no clue. All these things that we dig, and we could probably throw them into it and see how it turns out when they get mushed into a Steel Inferno raging speed metal machine. So you never hear where the inspiration came from, but just think what's happening here. I mean, I don't know, but it's definitely some of the ideas that we're exploring. That of course we have a cool sound now. We want to develop that further, but keep the ideas and inspirations coming into the band.
Yeah, I mean the band has had a pretty consistent lineup since the beginning. You know, three-quarters of you are still with the band from the beginning. Does it help having a consistent lineup? And what is the hardest part about keeping a lineup together today? I know, like it says, people have children, they have jobs, they have things going on, and it kind of makes it hard after a while. But when you join a band, you have to know from the beginning that you have to put a lot of time and effort into that band to make anything happen. So
Yeah.
what's the hardest part of keeping a band together today?
Uh, it has to keep on being fun for everyone. We have, because when we're like a band like this, you have a lot of discussions. It's not only coming to the studio, playing kick-ass music every week. You have to do a lot of work, uh, of course the fun parts are doing interviews like this, but you also have to do the driving. You have to spend hours folding your t-shirts so you can sell them at the show. You have to pick up the gear before and after the shows. You have to there are a lot of all these things that you have to do, which kind of sucks sometimes, but you just have to do it. And it's for every time you stand at the stage and get like 10 minutes of wow time that say, yeah, fucking this man, I'm a rock star. There are at least probably like 1,000 minutes for each minute on stage that goes before that into putting that energy on stage. So you have to be willing to put that much effort into it, I think.
It's true. People don't realize how much work goes on behind the scenes to make a show happen, to make an album happen, to get merchandise out on the table. There's a lot of work behind it, and You guys are doing a great job of it. And Lars, I'm not going to keep you, but I just wanted to say, the album's only been out about a week, technically about a week so far, and it's getting great reviews. I mean, what do you guys have planned, for the rest of this year? 2022 is almost over, but are there any big plans for this year? You're concentrating on next year right now?
Well, we had we've been playing shows at least once a month with a couple of up until the show, and we had played a festival last weekend. Last weekend we had at the record store that I mentioned before, Mephisto Records in Copenhagen. We had an in-store where we did a signing session and met with some of the people who supported us through the way. And next weekend we are having a release party at a local club, which is going to be a very small packed bar, and so it's going to be one of those very intense shows. There's no stage; it's just like face-to-face contact. So exactly like we love it, And the week after, we're doing a DJ session at a bar that our record company has. So we have a lot of small things, and then probably we're gonna sit down and figure out where we want to focus on, which summer festivals we just focus on trying to get the shows to, and starting writing some new songs, because we've kind of feel like we've been pretty busy with this album, getting it ready. So it's probably not the time to rest, but it's probably since we don't have that many shows planned the next couple of months, it's a good time to start getting creative, because I think we need that. We need to start feeling creative energy again, just to see, okay, where can we go from here?
I hope you guys do that. And Lars, like I said, I'm not going to keep you. I appreciate you talking with me today. Evil Rain, it's out right now from the vaults. I mean, great job on this record, my friend. I'm a big fan, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you, man.
You
pleasure talking to you.
You too, Lars.
She's coming close, I can sense her in the air. I stand and fight while others flee in the steps. She's on the hunt that she likes, I can take. Her determination will decide your fate. I'm so tall, I will not fail. I will stand my ground and I will prevail.
brand new Steel Inferno, Caught by Her Web. I want to thank Lars and Rob for being on tonight's show. I will see you guys next Sunday night. Invid is our guest. Don't forget to tune in. I'm not sure who's calling in yet. We'll find out during the week. I think it might be one or two band members. But Invid is our guest next week. Leather Leone after that. And we're going to wrap up the year with live guests with Maddox on the 18th of December. All right, let's close it out here tonight with some Anvil Bitch. Here's Vengeance of the Sword. Take care, everybody. Have a great week. I'll see you next Sunday night.